In case you couldn't tell, I've been traveling a lot for the past couple months. In fact, just in the month of July, we started in Thailand, then we went to Hawaii, then we went back home to California, then we went to Idaho, then back to California, then to Idaho again. We've been all over, and of course, there's some essentials I think that I want to take with me when I'm traveling, and I thought it'd be fun to kind of go over them for you, and I'm not talking just the obvious stuff. Yes, obviously, I take my watch, I take my phone, I take my MacBook, I take my AirPods. That's all the basic stuff. Today, we're talking more about some of those specific travel accessories that you may not be thinking about when you're just using devices at home, but things that are really, really nice to have when you're constantly on the move. And I'm happy to say that while we're talking about third-party companies and accessories today, this video is not sponsored. There have been no signed contracts. I can say whatever I want about any of these products, and I will. Let's begin. So the first thing I've gotten very, very annoyed with over the past few years is when you're packing all your stuff together, and of course on a flight, you gotta keep it all really light and condensed because it's gotta fit on the plane or else the airline is gonna get mad at you. And in the middle of packing everything, you have to make sure you have enough bricks. So many charge bricks. Oh, we gotta have some USB-A bricks for some of those USB-A cables, and we need some of those USB-C bricks for some of those USB-C cables. Oh, and this is the brick in my MagSafe cable just for my MacBook because my MacBook needs more power. Oh, and the iPhone has lightning, but the Apple Watch needs its own special charge puck. Oh my god, I hate how many different cables and ports we have to keep track of these days, and hopefully the iPhone 15 helps address some of these issues because getting USB-C on everything I do think will streamline a lot, but even then our MacBooks these days are usually shipping with MagSafe, so just another cable you gotta keep track of. And if you've been watching my live streams for a while, you probably know I've been complaining about this, so thankfully a company called VoltMe reached out with a solution with this gallium nitrate 140 watt charge brick, which is smaller than the Apple 140 watt brick, even though this is still gallium nitrate, but it addresses my biggest complaint of this charge brick, which is that there's only one USB-C port on it. Feels like kind of a waste to have this much power only with one port, whereas the VoltMe one has three. There's two USB-C ports and one USB-A. Yeah, I kind of still wish it was just three USB-C, but I will admit, a lot of the time you just run into scenarios where a USB-A cable is around, and it's kind of nice to just have a place to plug that in, or if you're traveling and you lose a cable, you're more likely, if you go to a 7-Eleven or something, to find a USB-A cable, and that one's probably going to be cheaper. So while I don't usually use USB-A for anything, it doesn't really hurt too much to have as an extra. But the cool thing is, both of these USB-C ports support 100 watt charging. In full disclosure, they did send me two items for free, but again, I can say whatever I want about them. I can trash them if I want to, and they did include this 6-meter USB-C cable, which I was honestly on the lookout for quite some time because I was getting sick of having to pack around cables for the Android phone or the iPad, and also for the MacBook because the MacBook wants to charge via MagSafe. And this one isn't braided, unfortunately, so that's a bit of a bummer, but it is only 20 bucks. It's about the same price as Apple's USB-C cables. The only difference is there's a little indentation on these, which makes them a little bit easier to plug in and unplug compared to the typical Apple ones. Also, it's black. I prefer black cabling to the white cabling, and the main reason I wanted this cable was I kept running into situations on my trips where I needed to charge my MacBook Pro from the right side, but MagSafe can only charge from the left side, so I had to keep sitting in weird directions or having to move the MacBook in a bizarre way or have the MagSafe cable stretched all the way to the left side of the MacBook. And I realized, even though yes, I love my MacBook Pro, I miss being able to charge it from either side. And the only issue preventing me from going back to USB-C was all of my USB-C cables were only 1 meter, so they were very, very short, and VoltMe thankfully hooked me up with this 2-meter long USB-C cable, which is great. I've been using it. I believe it supports over 100 watts, but I don't have any way to test that because the MacBook Pro, at least, its USB-C ports appear to cap at 100 watts. I don't know if that's an Apple software limitation or hardware limitation, but the only way to get over 100 watts on my MacBook Pro is through MagSafe, but 100 watts is still plenty fast in my opinion. I rarely need it to charge faster than that, and as more and more of us, I think, are going to be switching to Type-C with the iPhone 15 and likely AirPods Pro getting a USB-C charge case soon. iPads have pretty much all switched to Type-C. The Siri remote has already switched to Type-C. I think it's great that we're going to have more cables that can just kind of support everything now. It's wonderful. And the other accessory that's not really a new one, but it couples great with the VoltMe charger, is MagSafe Duo. I still never take a trip without this thing. It can charge my Apple Watch and my phone with a singular cable. The only issue with MagSafe Duo, and I've had it for 2 to 3 years now, is that it still requires a lightning cable, which I guess as of right now, there's still some lightning accessories out there, like our AirPods, unfortunately, still got a lightning port, and our iPhone still got a lightning port. So it's not, I guess, the end of the world to have a lightning cable around if you do need to charge the AirPods or the iPhone quickly, but for most like nightstand charging at the end of the day, this obviously works great. And now, instead of having to pack my 140 watt charge brick and a USB-C 20 watt charge brick, now I can just plug in my MacBook and my MagSafe Duo into a singular, smaller charge brick, and it does have to cut the power to share between the two. So when you plug in 2 devices to the USB-C ports on this thing, the MacBook gets 65 watts and the MagSafe Duo caps out at about 20 watts. It won't pull any more than that, but according to VoltMe, you could technically plug in 2 MacBooks to this thing if you're traveling with someone else and they also have a MacBook Pro, and you could actually get like 65 watts to both MacBooks. So definitely not fast charging, but still enough of a current to slowly charge up the MacBook Pro, and you still have an extra USB-A port left over if you have one other accessory that you feel like charging. This USB-A port can go up to 22 watts, while the other two are still outputting around 60 watts. So a total max output of 140 watts, and because it's so much smaller, there's better heat dissipation, and I just love the idea of just having to pack one charge brick on trips rather than have to pack all of these other things. So many charge bricks and cables. I'm trying to live more minimally, and the truth is, even if in the future they offer a MagSafe Duo with USB-C, or you recommend a third-party one, I'm still gonna have to use 2 cables, because there's oftentimes I need to charge the MacBook and my watch plus phone plus AirPods all simultaneously. So yeah, even if I bought that, I would still have to have an additional USB-C cable. But my hope is in the future, there won't be this need to decide between USB-A, Lightning, and Type-C. Everything can just be Type-C. It'll be bilateral and reversible, unlike USB-A and unlike Lightning, and that's the future I want to live in. But as of right now, basically 2 cables, charge brick, and MagSafe Duo covers pretty much all of my device charging, except for my Tesla, but I haven't figured out how to charge that thing via USB-C yet. So that keeps it pretty simple in terms of hardware, but in terms of software, I'm gonna lose a bunch of you right now. I have, for the first time, run into an issue where I was overseas and I realized my favorite TV shows that me and my wife were watching were no longer available. And to be honest, I'm one of those guys that doesn't use a VPN like ever. I just never saw the point, and I never ran into issues where I was like, oh man, if I had a VPN right now, I wouldn't have this problem. Like, never really came up. And I always kind of rolled my eyes whenever a YouTuber brought up a VPN until I went to the Philippines and Thailand, and I was like, oh, all of these shows that we watch on Discovery Plus and Max and Prime Video, they're no longer available because they're like, you're not in the US anymore. So for the first time, I was like, okay, I've run into a situation where a VPN would be kind of helpful. And I know there's a ton of YouTubers constantly telling you to check out VPNs, which is why I'm not saying necessarily you should go with this one, but I did some research because I know a lot of YouTubers are getting paid by these VPN companies. Makes it very difficult to understand who's being unbiased and whatnot. So I researched the pricing between some of the most popular VPNs I've heard of. A lot of you guys probably heard of the same ones: NordVPN, ExpressVPN, Surfshark VPN. Yeah, all of them kind of offer generically the same thing. It's like online protection, and you can pretend your device is somewhere else and access those TV shows from another place. That's pretty much all I needed a VPN for. But I wanted to see if this company that reached out to me called Privacy VPN, who wasn't offering a sponsorship, wasn't telling me to sign a contract and say certain things. They have not seen this video before you guys have. I wanted to see if they actually offered something over those 3 big VPNs that you guys have heard of. So I was just comparing the pricing, and I discovered that Privacy, maybe because they're less known and maybe because they're not blowing a bunch of money on paying YouTubers, maybe that's why Privacy has been able to undercut everybody else. So I'm not some VPN expert. I don't know if they're offering something drastically different from the other guys, but for me, all a VPN was needed for was pretending my device was somewhere else so that I can access certain movies and TV shows. And also there were a few times I was doing some online banking and YouTube studio management, and Google kept freaking out going, oh my god, someone's trying to access your account from another country. And it was kind of nice to have a VPN that let me pretend my devices were in America. So the big advantage Privacy VPN had is like, okay, maybe you're just taking a short trip. You don't need a long-term purchase, which is what a lot of these VPN companies try to do. They try to lock you into buying a license that lasts for several years. A lot of you don't need that. So if you just wanted a 1-month subscription, Privacy has, I believe, the lowest one I've seen at just under $10 a month. month. NordVPN, which is what all the YouTubers are telling you about, if you just want 1 month, is going to charge for $13 at least. For other perks and features, they'll probably even charge you more. ExpressVPN, if you're just looking for a 1 month membership, is also about $13. And it's the same story with Surfshark. So if you're just looking for a cheap basic VPN just to last you for the 1 month of the trip, I think Ivacy is probably the cheapest solution, and it did literally work for me. There's a Mac app, there's an iPhone app. I've never really used a VPN before, and it was cool to just have that integration right into the settings app and just have apps and streaming networks just start working. But if you're interested in more of a long-term VPN solution, I'm not personally, I just needed one during the trip. Ivacy VPN also has the cheaper option when it comes to the long-term price. So all of those other guys like NordVPN and Surfshark and ExpressVPN all kind of get down to around the 2-year membership pricing. And like if you buy for 2 years up front, they can get it down to about $3 a month or $2 a month, again, over the course of 2 years. But Ivacy VPN is the first one I've seen that actually lets you buy 5 years up front. So if you're just one of those paranoid people that is like, I need a VPN forever and always, theirs gets down to $1 a month if you buy 5 years in advance. Kind of locks in your pricing for the long term. Not something I would be interested in, but it did come up on this trip, and I appreciate them for reaching out and saying, hey, would you like to try this VPN? And they gave me like free will, freedom of speech to critique the VPN if I had any issues. No contract. They're not paying me anything. So I wanted to genuinely see if they worked and how their pricing compared to all of the other VPNs you guys have probably heard of. And they seem to undercut them both in the short term and the long term. So that's all I really know about it. And I just wanted to let you guys know that yes, okay, I have technically dabbled in the VPN space now, and it was very helpful on my trip, as were those charging accessories. So what else do you guys find useful on a lot of your long-term trips, aside from the obvious, like, I bring my AirPods with me? Okay, that's the basic stuff. Feel free to let me know what you bring down in the comments below, and thank you to everybody supporting this channel directly. Seriously, helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. This is your Apple Sheep here, and I will see you all in the next one.